The day began like any other warm Tuesday in Savannah, except this one had been circled on the family group calendar for weeks. Bold red font. Mandatory family meeting, 7 p.m., Cedar House. My mother's signature tone, passive-aggressive urgency. I knew exactly what this was. They'd been circling like vultures for months. I pulled into the crushed-shell driveway of my parents' historic Queen Anne home in my 10-year-old Subaru. I parked it purposefully beside my brother Connor's sleek black Range Rover. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. I checked my phone. 6:57 p.m. 3 new texts from my realtor. Bianca. Everything's confirmed, closing set for 9 a.m. Congratulations, Evelyn. I allowed myself a quiet smile, slipped the phone into my handbag, and approached the double porch doors I'd once run through barefoot as a kid. Before I could knock, the door opened. There stood my mother, Margaret Carter. Immaculate, icy, inspecting my outfit like it was a problem to solve. Her eyes swept over my cotton dress and practical sandals. "You're cutting it close," she said. "Good evening to you too, Mom." The parlor was already full. My father, pretending to be engrossed in The Economist, didn't look up. Connor sat stretched across the fainting couch like it was his throne. His wife, Paige, offered a tight smile without making eye contact. Connor muttered without turning his head. "Didn't think you'd show." I took the rigid upright chair, of course, the one that faced everyone. Margaret moved to the center of the room like a senator delivering bad news. "Now that we're all assembled," she began, "we need to talk about Evelyn's situation." That word again. Situation. That's what they called my leap of faith. Leaving a 6-figure corporate job to build something of my own. They saw failure, I saw foundation. Mom continued, her words honed and cold. "We understood you needed to get this entrepreneurial phase out of your system." She said it like I'd contracted something shameful. "But it's gone on long enough. You're becoming an embarrassment to this family." I stayed quiet. Emotion in this house was weakness, and weakness, blood in the water. "The charity gala's in 3 weeks," Connor's wife Paige added casually. "Everyone keeps asking what you do now. It's getting awkward having to explain that my sister-in-law lives in some shoebox and drives a car with a dented bumper." Connor nodded, arms folded. "Image matters here, Madison. You know that. We've talked it through." Mom straightened. "It's time you came back to reality. Your father called in a favor at Wellspring Capital. They're willing to ignore the gap on your resume. You can start in August," she added. Dad kept his eyes on the magazine in his lap. "And," Mom continued, eyes narrowing, "we found you a proper condo in historic downtown, much more appropriate than that walk-up you're in now." "And Michael Lambert's single," Paige chimed, lips curling in a smile. "He said he'd love to reconnect." Of course he did. Michael, who once asked me to fund his NFT startup, I'd declined, just before it collapsed. "Well?" Mom asked, tapping her heel, "don't you have anything to say?" I opened my mouth, but my phone buzzed. "Marcus Reynolds, realtor." "Excuse me," I said, answering and pressing speaker. "It's Carter." Marcus's voice rang clear. "I'm calling to confirm. You are now the sole owner of the Oglethorpe residences, all 300 units, including the penthouse, currently occupied by your family, are under your name. Shall I proceed with the rent adjustment plan we discussed?" Silence, Paige gasped. Connor's jaw dropped. Dad peeped over his glasses. And Mom, she went pale. "But that's where we live," she whispered. "Yes," I replied calmly. "I know. And now I own it," I said, voice steady. "You see, while you thought I was floundering, I was building. While you pitied me for pinching pennies, I was investing, strategically." They blinked. "While you laughed at my little side business, I was scaling a full-service property management company, quietly acquiring complexes across Savannah. The Oglethorpe Residences is just the latest, and frankly, the most satisfying." Paige's voice cracked. But those buildings are worth millions." "Funny thing about living below your means," I replied, standing. "Eventually, your means go above what anyone expects." I turned back to Marcus, still on speaker. No rent changes just yet, but let's regroup tomorrow on the renovation timelines. Of course, Miss Carter. Congratulations again. I ended the call. Silence. Well, I said, brushing a hand over my dress, about that charity gala? I've changed my mind. As the new owner of the venue, I suppose I should make an appearance. Mom collapsed into Dad's chair, composure shattered. Madison? I don't understand. No, I said gently. You never have. And that's why we're here. I picked up my handbag and walked to the door. Pa. Oh, and that shoebox I live in? I own the entire building, along with most of the block. Their faces were frozen in disbelief as I stepped onto the porch. My footsteps echoed across the marble. From behind me, Dad called, Madison, wait! But I didn't stop. I slipped into my faithful Subaru grinning. Sometimes the best revenge is quiet success, the kind they never even saw coming. The next morning dawned crisp and golden. From my real office, top floor Carter Square Tower, I sipped my coffee as Sarah slid a folder across my desk. Your mom's called 6 times, your sister 4, your dad's assistant wants lunch. No messages, I said, calmly. Let them wonder. You need to explain yourself. We're a family. You can't just... I let the message trail into silence, joining the long scroll of unread texts. Family. That word always seemed to matter most when they needed something. From me. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Miss Carter, the board is ready for you. I stood, smoothing my charcoal gray blazer. Sleek, tailored, and elegant. Designer, but understated. No loud logos necessary when the meeting's in your building. As I entered the boardroom, conversation ceased. 12 of Savannah's most prominent real estate developers, all men, all older, turned to watch me. They used to see a novelty. Now they saw a rival, a serious one. Gentlemen, I said, taking the seat at the head of the long table, let's discuss the future of downtown. 2 hours later, we'd inked 3 deals. I left the room with more than contracts. I left with leverage. As the others exited, Marcus lingered. Your father's firm called, he said carefully. They want in on the Riverside project. I smiled. Of course they did. The development would redefine Savannah's skyline. Tell them, I said, all proposals must go through proper channels, no family discounts. He nodded, then paused. One more thing. Your sister's husband, Connor, he's been asking around, trying to track your property holdings. I looked out across the city, the rooftops, the river, the streets I now owned more of than they knew. He'll only find what I allow him to. By mid-afternoon, my phone was lit up. 30 missed calls, dozens of texts, and 1 curious email. Connor to his partners. Need dirt on Madison Carter's companies, anything you can dig up. I forwarded it to legal, 1 word, watch. At 3:07, Amanda finally texted, emergency family dinner tonight, 7 p.m. You have to come. I replied, for the first time all day. Can't, board meeting, new acquisition. No such meeting, just dinner. With George Whitmore, Savannah's largest developer. The man my mother had spent years trying to meet. If you've ever been underestimated by the people who were supposed to believe in you, stick around. Madison's just getting started. Tap subscribe so you don't miss what happens when the family dinner becomes her boardroom. The restaurant was the kind of place without prices on the menu, because if you needed to ask, you didn't belong there. George Whitmore was already seated when I arrived. Madison, he said warmly, standing to greet me. I've been looking forward to this. Not every day someone builds an empire beneath my radar. I smiled as I sat, accepting the wine list from the sommelier. Sometimes the best plays are the quiet ones. He studied me, eyes thoughtful. Your family seems shocked by your success. My son, Connor, in particular, seems very eager to understand how you pulled it off. Is that so? I said, handing the list back. I thought he was only good at losing money on half-baked condo flips. George chuckled, genuinely. He's not used to being told no, or performing due diligence, or turning a profit. The sommelier poured a rich, deep red. George raised his glass. To new partnerships. I met his gaze. That depends. Are you ready to talk about the Marina District project? His eyebrow arched. You've done your homework. I make it my business to know what others miss, including your need for funding after that surprise environmental report. I may have a solution. For the next 2 hours, we discussed real business. Not country club gossip, not performative wealth. Strategy, capital. By dessert, the deal was sketched out, one that would reshape Savannah's waterfront and make us both far wealthier. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then smirked. Your mother just invited me to dinner next week. She insisted her brilliant daughter would be there. Let me guess, I said, rising. She meant Amanda. He nodded. Give her my regrets. I'll be in Singapore, closing another deal. He shook my hand. You built this in silence, Madison, and now they can't ignore you. Thank you, George, I had said, though honestly, I should thank them too. Being underestimated is a powerful advantage. Outside, my driver waited beside the car. Not the old Subaru my family still pictured, but a sleek black Mercedes I reserved for business meetings. As we pulled away, my phone buzzed. A message from Dad. Amber, Madison, please. We need to talk. It doesn't have to be like this. We're family. I stared at those last 2 words. Family? They kept saying it like it was a shield, a get-out-of-consequence-free card. But to me, it meant accountability they'd never shown. Opened my laptop, pulled up the lease agreements for the Oglethorpe residences. Time to review the penthouse contract, my family's unit. Business was business. I'd learned that from watching them. Ruthless when it served them. Now, the lesson belonged to me. They could have their emergency dinners. I had bigger rooms to walk into. 1 week later, I stood in my office, the sunset setting Savannah ablaze with golden light. Singapore had been a success. 3 deals closed, 2 global partners on board. But the storm was here. Sarah appeared in the doorway. They're all here. I nodded. Conference room? Yes, your mother, father, Amanda, James, and Mr. Lambert. I paused. George? No. Michael. He insisted on attending. Said it was a family interest. Of course. My mother was still matchmaking. If anything, my success had intensified her campaign. The conference room hushed as I entered. 12-foot ceilings, panoramic views, and a table I'd chosen to make a statement. Mom sat stiffly in Chanel. Dad, drained but resolved. Amanda gripped James like a flotation device. And Michael, puffed up with inherited confidence. Thank you for coming, I said, sitting at the head of the table. I understand you have concerns. Mother's lips tightened. Concerns? You vanish, ignore us, and now you're partnering with George Whitmore. This isn't like you, Madison. I raised an eyebrow. Actually, Mother, this is exactly like me. You just never paid attention. James leaned in, voice clipped. Now see here. We've been reviewing your companies, James said stiffly. Your structures are deliberately complex. Multiple holding firms, offshore accounts. What exactly are you hiding? Nothing, I replied evenly. Just protecting what's mine, a lesson I learned early. I pressed the intercom. Sarah, please send in the auditors. The double doors opened. 2 men in dark suits entered, thick folders in hand. James's complexion drained. What is this? He snapped. An internal audit, I said, of all attempted breaches into my company's systems over the past week, including your rather clumsy attempt to access our servers. I opened a folder. Section 47B of your lease at Oglethorpe Residences strictly forbids corporate espionage against the owner. That owner? Me. Amanda gasped. James, what did you do? Nothing illegal, he protested. I was protecting our family's interests. Your family's interests? I echoed coolly. Or your own? I let the silence hang. Yes, James, I know about the gambling. The failing investments, the loans, the trust fund you've been draining behind Amanda's back. Amanda turned to him, eyes wide. What is she talking about? She's twisting things, he stammered. She's jealous. Jealous. She had to crawl while you what? I cut in. Lived off Amanda's money? Squandered millions? Enough, Mom snapped. Madison, stop this. We're still family. I opened another file. Family. Like when you pressured my tenants to terminate their leases? Or called George Whitmore to poison the marina deal? Dad finally spoke. We were trying to protect you. You don't understand how this world works. No, I said, turning to the window. You don't, not anymore. I let the silence settle before continuing. While you played your games, I built real power. The deals you failed, I closed. The clients you lost, they're mine now. Michael Lambert finally spoke. This is why we should have partnered, Madison. We could Could what? I turned to face him. Lose money, like you always do, I said, eyes locked on Michael. Tell me, does your father know you're here? Does he know you tried to sabotage the marina project? His face flushed. My father doesn't control me. No, I replied, but I could. His mouth opened, then closed. On call. One word about your little interference, your attempted espionage, and George would cut you off. So would your trust. Shall I make that call? He went silent. I tapped a button. A concealed screen descended from the ceiling. Let me show you something. Slides appeared. Financials, maps, developments, ownership breakdowns. This is what I built. Without inheritance, without connections, just grit, strategy. Even my mother looked rattled by the numbers. The Oglethorpe? I continued. That was just the start. I now own over half the commercial square footage in Savannah's business district, 3 luxury residential properties, the riverfront development, and yes, George Whitmore's marina project. Amanda's voice was small. But why keep it secret? Why let us think you were failing? I looked at her, really looked. Past the polished exterior, I saw it. Not envy, fear of what I now represented, and what she might lose. Because you needed to see the truth, I said. Not just about me, but about yourselves, how quickly you dismissed me, how easily you defined success by image, by rules that never fit me. I sat down and opened a final folder. Now we decide. The Oglethorpe leases are up. James is disqualified. He voided his contract. I slid documents across the table. For the rest of you, new leases. Market rate, no exceptions. You wouldn't evict your own family, Mom whispered. No, I said. I'm giving you a choice. Stay, but treat me like family. Real family, not a pawn, not a project. An equal. Silence. Just the sound of pages turning. Amanda, I said gently, there's a position open at Carter Holdings, Vice President of Client Relations. You're more than qualified. I met her eyes. And more importantly, you're smarter than the small box James and our parents kept you in. The role is yours, if you want it. James opened his mouth to protest, but Amanda lifted a hand. I want to hear more. I nodded, then turned to Dad. Goldman isn't the only game in town. My international division could use someone with your background. As a consultant, not a controller. He picked up the contract, studying it slowly. And Mother, I added, a small smile playing at my lips. The charity gala you adore. The venue's paid for, permanently. A gift. From one businesswoman to another. She blinked, clearly shaken, fingers brushing her immaculate makeup. James, Michael. There's the door. Your security passes have been revoked. They rose, voices rising in protest, but my security team was already waiting, calm, professional. The rest of you have 24 hours to decide. Not about jobs or leases, but about the kind of family we want to be. The kind that builds, or the kind that destroys. I gathered my papers. I have a dinner meeting with George Whitmore. Amanda, if you're interested, join us. We'll go over details. As I reached the door, I heard a chair scrape. "I'll get my coat," Amanda said quietly. "Madison," my mother called after me. "Wait, that old car, the Honda, was that just for show?" I paused, turned. "No, that's my car." Because success isn't about what you drive. It's about what you build. The next morning, Sarah met me with coffee. "Amanda, accepted. Your dad's reviewing the contract, and your mother's in the lobby. Says she wants to learn." I smiled. "Then let's begin." Subscribe if you believe success means rewriting the rules and bringing your people with you. Madison's just getting started.